special. Just like she had a few million followers, that's all fine and good, but she was a person.
How did an Instagram influencer become the target of a fatal obsession? And who was Kevin Accorto, the man responsible for this horrifying tragedy? Stay with us as we unravel the haunting case of Lled Gagnier and the dangers lurking behind the screens. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Crime Watch Reports for more shocking true crime stories that need to be told. Lled Gagnier, better known as Miss Mercedes Moore, was a social media influencer and Instagram model with a massive following. With over 2 million fans, she was admired for her beauty, confidence, and luxurious lifestyle. She had built a strong brand for herself, working with fashion and beauty companies while living the life many could only dream of. However, to those who knew her personally, Lled was more than just an internet personality. She was a daughter, a sister, and a friend who valued the relationships she had outside of social media. Born and raised in Texas, Lled worked hard to establish herself in the competitive world of social media. She captivated her audience with her glamorous images and engaging content, making a name for herself as one of the rising stars in the industry. But behind the fame and admiration, there were also risks, dangers that came with being in the public eye, where admiration could sometimes turn into something much darker. Lled's success meant that she constantly interacted with strangers online, many of whom followed her every move. While most were simply fans, others became obsessed, blurring the line between admiration and dangerous fixation. Her growing presence attracted attention, not only from brands and businesses, but also from individuals she had never met, some of whom watched her closely from behind their screens. Despite her online popularity, Lled preferred to keep certain aspects of her personal life private. She was known to be close with her family, often spending time with them away from the spotlight. She had friends who described her as kind, ambitious, and always focused on reaching her goals. For those who loved her, she was more than just an influencer. She was someone they cherished. But the life she worked so hard to build would soon be overshadowed by something far more sinister. In August 2021, everything changed. When the news of her tragic death broke, it sent shockwaves through her fan base and the entire social media world. Many struggled to believe that someone so full of life could be gone so suddenly. But the reality was even more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Lled Gagnier had become the victim of a violent crime, one that would later be linked to an individual whose obsession had turned deadly. The man responsible, Kevin Accorto, was not a known acquaintance, yet he had somehow managed to invade her life in the most horrifying way possible. What led to this shocking act of violence? Who was Kevin Accorto, and why did he target Lled? As the investigation unfolded, disturbing details emerged, details that painted a chilling picture of the dangers that come with internet fame. What started as admiration had escalated into an act of pure horror, leaving Lled's family, friends, and followers devastated. Her story serves as a grim reminder of the hidden dangers lurking behind social media, where adoration and obsession can quickly turn into something far more dangerous. The tragedy of Lled Gagnier is one that still haunts those who knew her, raising questions about security, privacy, and the terrifying reality that influencers face in an increasingly connected world. On August 29, 2021, concerns began to mount when Lled Gagnier, better known as Miss Mercedes Moore, stopped responding to phone calls and messages. Her family, particularly her father, Mark Gagnier, found this unusual. Lled was known to keep in touch regularly, and silence from her was rare. As hours passed without any response, unease turned to fear. Determined to check on her, Mark Gagnier decided to visit her apartment in Richmond, Texas. What he walked into would be a nightmare that no parent should ever have to endure. Inside the apartment, a horrifying scene awaited. Lled was found lifeless, her body showing clear signs of trauma. But the shock did not end there. Nearby, in the same apartment, authorities discovered the body of a man, later identified as 34-year-old Kevin Alexander Accorto. The presence of this unknown man inside Janae's home immediately raised chilling questions. Who was Kevin Accorto? How did he get inside? And what had led to this gruesome discovery?
I don't know, but me walking in and finding my daughter and finding...
As investigators arrived at the scene, they quickly began piecing together the events leading up to Janae's death. There were no immediate signs of forced entry, suggesting that Accorto had either entered by deception or had been inside for some time. The situation took an even darker turn when authorities found disturbing handwritten messages scattered throughout the apartment. Messages left by Accorto himself. The writings hinted at an obsession, a fixation that had spiraled out of control. Authorities later determined that Accorto had no prior personal connection to Janae. He was not a close friend, nor was he a romantic partner. Instead, he was a stranger, one whose deadly obsession had escalated into something horrific. Further investigation revealed that Accorto had taken his own life at the scene. The cause of death was determined to be suicide, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. Did Janae know she was being watched? Had Accorto been following her online, planning this attack for days, weeks, or even months? Law enforcement examined security footage from the apartment complex, hoping to trace Accorto's movements leading up to the crime. They needed to determine how long he had been there, and whether there were any warning signs that might have been missed. As news of Janae's death spread, the shockwave rippled through the social media world. Fans, fellow influencers, and loved ones struggled to comprehend how such a tragedy could occur. Many questioned the dangers of internet fame and the terrifying reality of unwanted attention that influencers often face. For Janae's family, the loss was devastating. What started as concern over unanswered phone calls had led to an unimaginable tragedy. But as the investigation continued, one thing became clear. This was not a random crime. It was a result of a dangerous obsession, one that ended in violence. What truly led Kevin Accorto to commit this horrific act? And could anything have been done to prevent it? The answers remained chilling as the case unfolded. Before August 29th, 2021, the name Kevin Alexander Accorto meant nothing to the world. Unlike Janae Gagnier, he was not a public figure. He had no social media influence, no known connections of fame, and no apparent ties to his victim. But on that tragic day, his name became forever linked to a crime that shocked the nation. So, who was Kevin Alexander Accorto? Authorities identified him as a 34-year-old man from Florida. He had no known criminal history, no record of violent offenses, and no previous reports of stalking. On the surface, he appeared to be an ordinary individual. But as investigators dug deeper, they discovered a disturbing pattern, one that suggested an unhealthy obsession with Janae. Accorto had reportedly driven over 1,000 miles from Florida to Texas, an extraordinary distance that pointed to a sinister motive. The evidence suggested that he had been following Janae online for some time. While the extent of his obsession remained unclear, law enforcement suspected that Accorto had been fixated on her through her social media presence. Inside the crime scene, investigators found handwritten messages, notes left behind by Accorto himself. The messages hinted at a man who was deeply disturbed, possibly battling internal struggles that eventually pushed him to commit an unthinkable act. Some reports suggested that these writings revealed delusions about a perceived connection between him and Janae, though in reality, no such relationship existed. Despite thorough investigations, no records of personal communication between Janae and Accorto were ever found. There were no messages, no sign that she had ever interacted with him, and no indication that she even knew he existed. Yet, in his mind, she had become the center of his world. Law enforcement traced Accorto's movements in the days leading up to the crime. Surveillance footage showed that he had been in Janae's apartment complex for an extended period before her death. How he gained access to the building remains unknown, but authorities suspect he may have been watching her from a distance before making his move. Psychologists and criminal experts weighed in on the case, describing it as a classic example of obsessive delusion, where an individual fixates on someone they have never met, convincing themselves of a connection that does not exist. Such cases often escalate, sometimes with devastating consequences. As news of Accorto's background surfaced, the internet erupted with speculation. Was this a premeditated attack? Had he planned this for months? And most chillingly, was there ever a moment when this tragedy could have been prevented? While his exact motives may never be fully understood, one fact remains clear. His obsession with Janae turned deadly. His journey from Florida to Texas was not a coincidence. It was a final step in a dangerous fantasy that led to real-world horror. With Accorto deceased, there would be no trial, no confession, and no chance to fully unravel the depths of his obsession. But for Janae's family, friends, and millions of fans, the loss was irreversible. The man behind the crime may now be known, but the painful question lingers. Why did it have to happen this way? The discovery inside Janae Gagnier's Richmond, Texas apartment on August 29, 2021, was nothing short of horrifying. According to forensic reports, Janae had been strangled, the cause of death pointing to a brutal and violent attack. But as investigators combed to the scene, they made another chilling discovery. Kevin Accorto was also dead. Authorities determined that after murdering Janae, he had taken his own life inside the apartment. The crime was as disturbing as it was tragic. A beautiful, rising social media influencer, admired by millions, had become the victim of an obsessed stalker who'd been watching her from the shadows. This was not a random act of violence. It was calculated, deliberate, and deeply unsettling. Detectives worked tirelessly to reconstruct the events leading to the murder. Surveillance footage showed no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Accorto may have either followed Janae inside, gained access through unknown means, or had already been hiding in the residence before she returned home. Forensic teams scoured the apartment for evidence, uncovering disturbing messages written in lipstick on the walls. These cryptic notes appear to reveal Accorto's twisted fixation on Janae, though their exact contents were never made public. Some sources suggested that the messages included apologies, confessions, and delusional claims, offering a chilling glimpse into the mind of the man responsible. The investigation confirmed that Accorto had no prior connection to Janae, at least not in reality. There were no text messages, no calls, no personal exchanges between them. This was a case of pure obsession, where a man had convinced himself that he shared a connection with someone who had likely never even heard his name. Authorities classified the crime as a murder-suicide, but many unanswered questions remained. How long had Accorto been stalking Janae? Had he been outside her apartment for days, weeks, or even months before making his move? And most disturbingly, could this tragedy have been prevented? As the case made headlines, it reignited discussions about the dangers of social media fame. Experts weighed in on the dark reality of online stalking, warning that many influencers unknowingly attract obsessive followers who blur the lines between admiration and dangerous fixation. Janae Gagnier, known to the world as Miss Mercedes Moore, had spent years building a life that millions admired. Yet, in the end, it was one unknown, obsessed stranger who stole it all away in a matter of moments. The investigation into her death may have answered the how, but the why still haunts those left behind. For Janae's family, friends, and fans, the pain was immeasurable. The crime had been committed, the suspect was dead, but the wound left behind could never fully heal. Janae Gagnier's tragic death is more than just another crime story. It's a chilling reminder of the dangers influencers and public figures face in today's digital world. What started as admiration turned into deadly obsession, and one life was cruelly taken because of it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Should social media platforms do more to protect users from stalking and obsession? If you found this case shocking, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Crime Watch Reports for more deep dives into true crime cases. Thank you for watching and stay safe.